I think so.
Wait, that's so
I
weird.
think I need to grab
There-
these
If
headphones.
there's an entity behind the thing, you can't.
Yeah,
Wait, no, that's
headset is,
Survivor.
I believe,
Oh,
for
wait,
people
yes, you
on the
can.
stage.
Oh, headsets for on
It wasn't
stage.
working for a second. That's so odd.
I thought I need a headset for the Okay.
You
SSR.
might. Apparently there's a specific Phonos build for recorders.
Oh, are you kidding me?
It's not necessary. It just mutes all like non-Phonos SVC audio.
Are you telling me that I'm supposed to be like switching between? Oh my.
No,
Well,
you're fine. You don't need.
yeah. Thank you. Okay. Alright, I should be streaming. I'll be posting my stream shortly. Here. I'll go. Alright. This will probably have to be cut. I can hear someone's door. I'm gonna have to just. There we go. Shoot. There we go. Calico, you should be
Yeah.
on this stage back there.
Yeah, I can't quite get. I want to.
There we go.
Stage.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have the role. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
get.
need headphones.
Yeah, I'll give you a headset here.
Thank you.
All right. Say something.
Hello.
Oh, hit that and then say something. You have to hit with a block. There. Okay. Say something now.
There we go.
Keep on trying to say
Does that sound
something.
good?
Good news. I'm real
Want me to
again.
turn
Hi.
on my mic?
All right. I think. Is it? Lemma, is everything good on your end?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm good.
SS, is everything good on your end? Okay. I am going. I'm going to. I'm going to spectator. From probably here on out, I'll cut up. I'll cut this stream up to around this point. Just remind me to on Monday.
Sure.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
I don't think Quiet's got to give me the screen tablet first. Okay.
Calico, are you mic'd
yeah.
up?
Yeah, I'm mic'd up. Yeah, I am.
Good.
Problem with oh my god. Link's a problem?
Uh-oh.
Okay, you're working on it, cool.
Got it.
Oopsie whoopsie. God, that's funny. Okay. So I guess, I'll just entertain the crowd while this is going on. How's the weather? No problem. What's up? What's up, Familiar? Do you want me to upload the remaining 30 slides? Okay, you've got it. Why does it say a different player is using that microphone? Okay. Yeah, somebody else seems to be hooked up to this microphone in the middle.
We can hear you breathing very deep, Chi-Chi.
Familiar is on them. Okay, thanks. Okay, so little thing. What controls? Is it like left click to go back and right click to go forward? Okay, I can't. Okay, I can't. Okay, shift right click back. Okay, there we go. Okay, so. Okay. So, hi everyone, how are we doing today? Okay, talk start. Yep. How are we doing today? So, first of all, I will be giving some little disclaimers. So this topic will go into some heavy game design topics, so make sure you're interested in this topic if you are to listen to this talk. Otherwise, I might sound like the adults from Peanuts to you. A disclaimer that I also want to state outright is that there is no objectively correct way to game design. Just do what's the most correct for your vision and design goals. There's practices that help and there is learning curve. But there's not an objectively correct way to do this. Another thing is that all of this is subject to change. Just because I said it now, my mind may change in the future as the mod evolves. Okay, so before this talk, let's start with introductions. So I am Merchant Calico. You might also know me as Merchant Pug, my old username. I got my foot in the game design door by experimenting whilst modding Minecraft. It's brought together so many amazing opportunities for myself and others I know. I've worked on a various amount of mods, whether it be Farmer's Delight Refabricated, or Bovines and Buttercups, or just any other one of my mods. You might have played something of mine at some point. I'm even hoping to get into game dev after some of my priorities wrap up within modding. I try to keep myself pretty busy when I can. I'm usually collaborating with a lot of other people within my mods, with the mod I'll be talking about today being no different, with a lot of my modding team, Greenhouse, contributing plenty of opinions and codebase work. I've collaborated... Okay, I'll turn it up. I'll turn my mic up. Is this better? Is sound cutting out? Okay. Okay. I'm usually collaborating with a lot of other people within my mods, with the mod I'll be talking about today being no different, with a lot of my modding team, Greenhouse, contributing plenty of opinions and codebase work. I've collaborated with people such as Ultraspot, Neilok, Octal, and Sylv, all of whom have taught me various different bits of knowledge as a self-taught programmer. Thank you all so much. Now, here's the big question. What is an Enchiridion? Is it something you can eat? Something you can read? Okay, the word does mean a book with a whole lot of information on one topic. Now, how does that relate to the mod at hand? Is it a recipe viewer? Is it an in-game encyclopedia? Is it information-based at all? My answer to that is not quite what you would expect. Enchiridion is an enchantment rework mod, focusing entirely on enchanting and enchantments as a system, without touching on any extra unnecessary parts of the game, but still being a sizable mod all about enchanting. With how creative you can get with a system like enchanting, the phrase enchantment rework actually doesn't tell you a whole lot about the mod from a what does it do standpoint, because it could be considered an enchantment overhaul, such as Enchantment or Minecraft Dungeons Enchanting, an enchanting overhaul, such as Enchantery, or even something as simple as Fuzz's Easy Magic, that just reworks the enchanting table slightly. Don't be surprised if you end up disagreeing with any of my takes. It's natural with a subject matter that can be as far-fetched as enchanting. Speaking of disagreements, why did I make this? So, why make this when others did it already? Oh, X mod is really perfect. Why can't you just play with that? Why would you make your own mod that's been done before? Blah, 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 blah. Why do we do anything that anybody else had done before? Why was Farmer's Delight Refabricated made? when Farmer's Delight Fabric existed and most liked it as is. So, why not? This is an awful mindset to fall into. You won't get any creative works done. Design differences can lead to pretty interesting projects being made. Speaking of this, Enchiridion was initially concepted because of one specific enchantment overhaul. I won't be getting into this too much because it's not the focus of this talk, but if you need to know, it was a personal disagreement with basically every little execution detail. Okay. Is Enchiridion an overhaul or a rework? Enchiridion does have overhaul aspects, but I personally classify it as a rework because it's just nowhere near as forceful as other mods that overhaul the system. Reworks can overhaul certain things, and vice versa for overhauls reworking is true too. Now don't fall into spite. Pure spite should not be the main reason to make a mod. Spite can sometimes be a powerful initial motivator, but don't make it your main motivator like a certain mod loader did. Enchiridion admittedly started as a spite project, but later became a passion project for modifying one of my biggest roadblocks within enjoying the vanilla game. So, how does Enchiridion rework? I mentioned earlier that Enchiridion focuses on enchantments and enchanting. Well, currently the enchanting changes are mostly a result of the enchantment changes, as well as the little quality of life tweaks that made sense here and there. I think we will start with some basic design guidelines going into the mod, as these are always the first thing you consider when working on a mod to avoid creating features that do not fit what you envision. Okay, so Enchiridion's baseline design guidelines are meant to allow for simplicity on a player's end, and to still be effective at its job while changing as little as possible. I'm a mechanics preservationist when it comes to reworking systems. I personally don't really enjoy throwing out literally everything when there's a neat thematic or concept that is already there. As such, Enchiridion focuses on reworking vanilla content rather than removing vanilla content and replacing it with my own. Content should work alongside vanilla content in Enchiridion, rather than replacing it outright. This is why I haven't removed a single vanilla enchantment. Pure nerfs are also not preferred within Enchiridion. For two examples, Thorns in my opinion was a quite problematic enchantment from a design standpoint, as it unconditionally punishes players for hitting an entity. However, nerfing it was just not the solution. It's better to turn a problematic thing into something interesting within your changes rather than just nerfing it into the ground. Value nerfs should be part of the balancing process, not part of the designing process. Another example is that protection is only nerfed by proxy, with feather falling being incompatible by default. However, the intention wasn't to nerf protection. The change just made the most sense within other systems of the mod. Protection is an interesting subject as a whole, because it's close to being as divisive as mending. If you were to ask me, I actually have a bit of a spicy take. Protection is a necessary evil with the problem of feeling overtuned for some scenarios. I feel it is out of Enchiridion's scope specifically to nerf protection values, as I wish to keep less hardcore players in mind. However, I want to bring something a little different to the table. Protection stacking as a mechanic is really interesting. I'll explain how it works quickly. We've coined a system known as protection points. One level of base protection grants 1 point. Specialized protection levels grant 2 points, and feather falling grants 3. 1 protection point equals 4% damage reduction within the enchantment's area. So for fire protection, it would be fire damage. Feather falling in vanilla is the most common usage of this system because feather falling does add on to your current protections when taking damage from a fall. However, feather falling runs into something known as into the 20-point/80% reduction cap. Not even at level 4. Let me explain. 1 protection 4 pieces equal to 16% damage. This means you gain 64% damage reduction to most damage sources. As protection is no condition, then you may pair this with Feather Falling 4, which is a 48% reduction to falls. However, this amount exceeds the cap, so ironically, Feather Falling 2 is the exact same as protection with Feather Falling 4. With protection 4 as Feather Falling 4. This system works far better for the 2-point protections with the sacrifice of the 4 global protection points, leading you to specialize into another protection to just reach the cap, leading to the 48% global damage reduction, but 80% in either fire, blast, or projectile damage. The most reworking protections we'll get in the future is the opposite of a nerf. It's actually a buff for the specialized protections. Blast, fire, and projectile protection may be able to stack past the typical free protection 4+1, specialized for breaks 80% damage, threshold at dwindling returns. To make sure there's some benefit to having more than one specialized protection piece. Doing this just makes you have to sacrifice pieces with global protection. It's niche, but you're always bound to have content that just isn't as useful as others. It doesn't mean they're a bad feature. It just means that they may not be for you specifically. To bring up some other common arguments that I don't necessarily agree with. The moment you introduce other protections such as melee protection to attempt to diversify the player's protection choices, optimizers will still pick the most common one. It's not really going to be any different. Often people suggesting this did not think of the ramifications or in this case, how little this would affect the players you're targeting you would have as a whole. Having the protection enchantments stack with base protection is another solution I've seen thrown around. And in my opinion, the Minecraft player probably doesn't need even more defensive power than they already have. On top of this, protection stacking would need to be reworked heavily for this to function outside of one piece. There's also the argument of removing... by one piece, what I mean is, yeah. One piece is, you only go up to 80%, and one piece is the only one that's required that you do that. So, there's also the argument of removing protection. A lot of mid/end progression content would have to be balanced around the removal of protection, so this isn't entirely ideal. There's also delegating the stat enchantments to a different system, which, to reiterate, both of these solutions are out of scope for Enchiridion specifically. I'll get into what I did with stat enchantments later in the talk. Make sure to actively think about what you're adding instead, and why you're adding that, rather than letting the armchair gremlin control you by making you overconfident in your initial idea, while not understanding what players may do / already like. You'll be doing better than 90% of YouTube video essayists if you sit down and think. Okay, to get off my soapbox, I would highly suggest sitting down and thinking about protection enchantments for yourself, because it's a really interesting topic that you can come up with your own opinion on. It's also more complicated than you think. So, what is the enchanting system? It's important to discuss what you like and don't like about a system before reworking and overhauling it. So how do I personally see Enchanting's system place in the game? So, Minecraft's enchanting system isn't the same as it was before, with the original system being built around little bonuses. Being little bonuses for your items. You couldn't guarantee high levels, and you got what you got. Enchantery plays around with this concept. If you're looking for an enchanting overhaul that changes the system to be like pre-anvil enchanting, Enchiridion more so takes on the other approach to enchanting. Minecraft enchanting in the modern day is either what I stated above, or a progression path you can choose to go down, depending on who you ask. Minecraft priorities have changed a lot over the years. We no longer have tools being absolutely temporary as a major design point, which makes enchanting less of a little bonus to your temporary tools, especially now with content such as mending, anvils, and the diamond tier item villages mixed with grindstones. In my opinion, it might work just a bit better with the modern game to make enchanting feel more like a proper system for the player to invest into over time. In fact, we already kind of have this approach. Oops, sorry, I spoiled a joke. God damn it. So, in fact, we already have this kind of approach, especially with treasure enchantments being enchantments that you can only find within structures, as well as like some other content. Librarians providing plenty of the game's enchantments, as well as enchantment levels. To additionally mention that mending is a treasure enchant. Some more casual players will typically... Could you please try switching to the middle mic? Okay, I'll do the middle mic. There we go. I'm in the middle mic now. How does that sound? Okay. Turn down my mic amplification. You okay? You all okay now? I apologize for the not realizing that this do I need to reiterate anything, or have you all got it? Just wasn't going through phonos. Okay, that's okay. Okay, no problem. Cool. Minecraft, okay, so if more casual players will typically put up durability as a system and not maximize their tools, as tools are temporary, with only the hardcore audience really being able to do so. So it's technically both a system of, here's silly little bonuses for your item, and here's a little progression tree for you to go down if you want, depending on who you ask. Minecraft's enchanting progression tree can at worst be seriously grindy and tedious, and take away from a sandbox experience by making a player too focused on this part of the game, which ultimately should be an addition to your existing experience rather than a grueling task for a player to go through before doing the things you actually want to. In my opinion, unless the system is intentionally a challenge, you should try and allow the average player to experience them. Enchantments, in my opinion, unfortunately fail at allowing the average player to experience the system completely, as only those who know the mechanics on a deep level can understand and utilize the system fully. Whether it be villages or exploiting enchanting table seeds, yeah, you'll have people just exploiting the system and understanding what's going on a bit better than other people who will just like treat it as the former rather than the latter. So how do we somehow change the enchanting system to fit this? Do we just change every system that relates to it? Why don't we rework the entire game? I personally find my most joy in Minecraft's wide appeal and sandbox elements, meaning that I instead prefer to make sure that my mod wasn't actively taking away from most players' experience with the game. So my personal answer to reworking the entire game is that I'd rather make a mod pack with other mods that could be more focused on those other parts of the game that I'm not the largest fan of. Mixing and matching mods in vanilla content is something that is, in my opinion, the user's business. So I didn't want to invalidate literally every other mod already with a single mod already touching on a pretty broad part of the game by touching on completely different systems. This is why other systems such as durability and experience, which may be considered by a mod such as this one, have been left untouched. In fact, one of my goals for Enchiridion is to be pretty functional as a mod if you wish to remove most of its sweeping changes. You should also be sure to remember the scope creeper, a fan favourite of my previous Blanketcon talk. But nonetheless, scope creep is a genuine issue you can run into with your work, so make sure you define your scope beforehand, so you don't just add whatever's really cool, but is disorienting with other features. The scope creeper and armchair goblins are fiancés. They can go quite hand in hand. So this was a lot to go through. And we're only really talking about some of the very abstracted from any systems who are actually working with baselines. So if you're not already lost, let's get a little bit back on track. Enchantments. Enchiridion fundamentally changes how enchantments work, for quite a few reasons. Enchiridion's most important change is the enchantment category system. Each of the 3 main categories take up a single slot and are mutually exclusive. I'll answer that later. Is the enchantment category system. Each of the 3 main categories take up a single slot and are mutually exclusive with enchantments within the same category. Having a categorical system allows enchantments to effectively be capped in some way, and also allows for more precise what goes where logic, to both avoid choice paralysis and to have more cohesive builds than if you were allowed to apply anything anywhere. So let's elaborate on enchantment categories. Primary enchantments are the main element of your enchantment salad sandwich. Primary enchantments either further encourage you into an existing usage of the item, such as fortune, looting, or loyalty, or change up a part of how you use the item, such as Silk Touch, Riptide, or Windburst. Secondary enchantments are the subsidiary element of your enchantment sandwich. Secondary enchantments are little additions to your items that can really make them pop, whether they be a generally useful thing with their own quirks such as Fire Aspect or Reach, or something a little more niche, such as Cleaving or Flurry. You'll want to experiment with these to see which of these work best with your playstyle and other enchantments. Tertiaries are the bread and butter of your enchantment sandwich. These are typically stat boosts that are quite essential to making your life easier. Tertiaries focus in on the item's original use case, such as weapon tertiaries being damage boosts such as Sharpness and Smite. Armor tertiaries being protections such as Protection, Feather Falling, and Blast Protection. Tertiaries are the least likely to be added by Enchiridion, especially if there's a case like mining tools where there's little reason to pick anything other than the baseline. In this case, efficiency, and where everything would turn into just a weird and quirky version of the baseline enchantment. I also wanted to put far less emphasis on raw stats when compared to Vanilla's current system. If there's any categories to neglect, it's tertiaries. Unbreaking and Mending are not associated with a category. This allows them to be applied anywhere without restriction. They are unchanged as durability is another can of worms that again is out of scope for this mod. Curses have their own category. And you may have as many curses on your item as you want. Curses remain as silly little thematic options with little use cases in Enchiridion. We're just adding a few more curses to further what's quite an underutilized system. Speaking of adding enchantments, Enchiridion would not be as good if we had a category system, but didn't add anything to fill in gaps. Especially as somebody who prefers reworks over outright nerfs. Enchiridion's enchantments are designed to be simple and open enough to easily pick up what they do, even without the need for an enchantment description mod. Enchiridion adds multiple enchantments to fill in places where vanilla does not provide. For example, mining tools do not have valid secondaries, which lead to exhilarating and reach being added to fill in this gap. I'm also nowhere near done with adding new enchantments to the mod, so expect more to be added in the future. Both fill in niches where suitable and to add more competition with more dominant enchantments in a general area. for both old and new options. Enchiridion typically looks at existing item enchantments to determine an item's niche. To determine an item's niche when enchanting, such as boots being surface modifiers, leggings being general mobility options, and swords being a utility weapon. However, what happens when the game doesn't provide any enchantments for an item? You make it the fuck up! Chestplate enchantments will be health and defense-oriented armor pieces when they get concepted added, or in the case of axes, their weapon enchantments are typically raw damage-oriented, giving the sword more utility stuff. Either way, I would highly suggest going to the Enchiridion booth after this presentation and playing through the Enchiridion trials. It should give you a feel for many enchantments from the mod. I will say the trials are somewhat incomplete. There has to be some little extra tweaks going on in them. But like food does run out and I've got to add a food trade to the villager, as well as the loot table for the yeah, axes do have chopping. That's another aspect that they have. This is where splitting comes in. Splitting is in the tool chamber if you want to go check that out. Where is the Enchiridion booth by chance? To the right of the stage. It's to the right of the stage. And you can warp. So, to the east of the stage, specifically. It's east. So, Enchanting. Enchanting is the secondary system I focused on within Enchiridion. I wanted to make sure each enchantment obtaining method feels like it has a proper niche within such a system. So how about we start with the original? The one everybody wants to change. The enchanting table. I wanted to focus on rehashing the enchanting table to feel more worthwhile and like something you can come back to. And to help leverage the thematic dissonance, where the enchanting table just isn't really an enchanting method to utilize for some players. The enchanting table has many choices when reworking it, such as, do you keep its random elements? Do you incorporate any minigames into the process? Do you make specific enchantments unavailable? Should players be encouraged to come back after an initial roll? In Enchiridion, I kept the random elements. I did not incorporate any minigames into the process. Treasure enchantments still exist. However, the last question is a yes. So, the enchanting table in Enchiridion has two main functions. Enchant and the brand new level system. Enchanting works very similarly to Vanilla's systems right now, except that it's a little more guaranteed on how many enchantments you get, as well as it will enchant a specific amount of times depending on how high the level requirement is. Enchanting table level requirements are also lowered to be more realistically obtainable by a player, with a maximum enchantment at level 20 rather than 30. Leveling is a new functionality, as it allows you to level up your enchantments you either rolled or got elsewhere for the cost of experience and a little bit of lapis. This also requires a specific amount of bookshelves to actually allow you to use it. The leveling change was made to make low levels feel less like fodder within the game, and to allow mechanics to hand out low-leveled enchantments for the players to utilize before they really invest time into enchanting for a higher level. Additionally, admittedly, I would like to look into putting more work into the enchanting table in the future, because I would like to integrate it further into Enchiridion and make it something very special, but now just wasn't the time. The Anvil. The Anvil was the previous way to level up your enchantments. However, people typically decide to not bother with this because of repair taxes getting in the way. The one mechanical removal I made within this mod was Anvil's increasing costs based on how many times you use it, simply for the reason that Enchiridion tools are not exactly meant to be entirely temporary like old Minecraft, and because it just went against a mod that encourages you to experiment with your options. So, the Anvil lost its leveling niche at the moment, because it's just given to the enchanting table, and the enchanting table is just cheaper, it's more cost efficient, and many other reasons. It's nicer to use, and so, speaking of experimenting with your options, the anvil gained a brand new option to help with material costs and stop you from making items for every single option you may want. Enchantment swapping is a new feature unique to the anvil. It allows you to swap incompatible enchantments from an item and an enchanted book. This allows you to effectively use enchanted books as storage for your unused enchantments. The feature also only has a level cost of 1 when it comes to utilizing it, so I imagine you'll all get some mileage out of it. There might be some balancing changes for the above in the future, but nonetheless, I hope anybody here who's going to play the mod will enjoy the reduced need to craft every single armor set you'll use once and leave in storage afterward. Librarians and smiths. Villagers. No text for this one, because I think that gets my thoughts across better without any additional text. You either hate them or really hate them. Well, villagers are an optimizer's dream come true. However, I'm going to be honest. While they are problematic in a few ways for the game, they are not the only problem with the enchanting grind. With the enchanting table and chest being too unreliable to really utilize, they're just the one people can point at and tell Mojang to go eat a salad regarding. Enchiridion treats villagers as side content that somebody may want to utilize, with enchantments that come from them being lowered in level and a little bit more consistently priced and less swayed by opinion than in vanilla. This is to integrate within the enchanting table's leveling function, and to make the game less swingy as a whole. Librarians got a fair amount of changes mechanically, being somewhat inspired by the villager rework changes. Enchantment changes are instead limited to a few specific enchantments, with some villagers sharing certain options so you don't have to go for a single variant to find a more common enchantment you might want. Villagers will not trade enchantments in the same enchantment category more than once within the novice, apprentice, and journeyman stages, with expert villagers being allowed to trade up to 2 enchantments on the same book. Master trades are where this gets interesting, with Unbreaking and Mending being the 2 choices for this. Unbreaking is given to more commonplace villager variants, plains, desert, taiga, and savanna, whereas snow, jungle, and swamp are able to trade the player mending books at master level. Side tangent. Spicy mending take! Mending is a hot topic that I haven't mentioned until now, so here goes. Mending is a great enchantment for players who dislike the durability system and want to soft remove it. It's a non-global opt-out. These are typically players who want to treat Minecraft as a creative canvas, without having to worry about minor elements, while still having the ideas of health and collecting your resources and other tasks like that. Now, mending isn't great for those who want to treat survival Minecraft as more of a game, where durability should matter as a mechanic, especially when it's the only solution for tools lasting forever in vanilla. I'll digress this subject before it goes too far, but this is the context for these changes. Players who want to treat Minecraft as purely a building sandbox will probably want to set up villagers in some way, as they're a more centralized source of enchantments that the player may want to extend into parts of the game they like. Mending is for that audience, so giving them to the villagers that are a bit rarer than the commonly found ones rewards these players whilst allowing players who don't care about mending to still enjoy setting up a village as an option for Unbreaking, or any common enchantment they may want. You can now lower your pitchforks, as we are changing topic from a vanilla floor to a vanilla floor that still carries over to Enchiridion. Rerolling your trades still isn't quite ideal. I might look into de-bloating what villagers can actively trade to the player at some point to help circumvent this a bit. Now, the siphoning table is a brand new block created to alleviate the stress of renewable enchantments from villagers. It's meant to be a unique way to provide enchantment crafting, but without making it feel too powerful. To obtain this item, you will need to go to the Deep Dark, where you will find Echo Shards and a Sculk Catalyst, both used to craft the siphoning table. The Deep Dark was chosen as its main unique reward. The recovery compass is in my opinion misplaced, and for newer players who die a lot is not really a good fit for a placement as an environmental challenge for more experienced players. So the siphoning table was created with mid to end progression in mind. Now here's a question. How would you insert enchant experience into a crafting station? Any audience answers? So whoever said Skulk Catalyst, you're the correct answer for my case. So there's definitely the answer of the player supplies it, but the other part of is that this crafter should be somewhat automatable, and having a player nearby at all times would prevent that. There's also that experience storage is something I personally do not like, as I see experience as an abstract way to view how long you've been playing in the world. Enchiridion is mix-ins and glue. I will tell you that. Well, as I see experience as an abstract way to view how long you've been playing in the world. Well, provided you don't just cheese it. So this is where the Skulk Catalyst comes in. By placing it near the table will become fueled by the Skulk Catalyst. This also provides some challenge to the player with how they set up their table, because you will have to bring in experience elsewhere to actually use it. For the audience I'm catering to with this block, I think that giving it a challenge for using it is important. Now, what do we think? So there's more to come in the future. Enchiridion's enchanting changes are not finished. There's a few things I'm going to be implementing for the future, such as a rework to enchanting power from bookshelves, to utilize chiseled bookshelves, to encourage more setup for better rolls, and to lessen the optimal bookshelf amount. That's true, Echo. That is true, Echo. Again, the thing I will answer there with you, Echo, the siphoning table is not really meant for, like, not entire, the siphoning table is more so for, like, players who think about, is more so for players who, like, the siphoning table is not really for, like, the really casual audience, if that makes sense. So, again, I want to change it. Again, I'll probably be changing it to, like... Again, I'll probably be changing aspects of it to, like, match some specific stuff. And, the siphoning table's also going to be getting changes. So, who knows? I might actually, like, make it a little bit more, utilized within the vanilla system. So... I might make it a bit more utilized. Like, I know that I'm also going to be carrying the bookshelf stuff over to the siphoning table and removing the material cost from the more material cost to get more levels from the equation. That's something else I want to do. So higher leveled crafting would depend on this. So lessening the optimal bookshelf count for regular bookshelves would be specifically so decorators can, like, feel a bit less restricted for an enchanting table. Because, like, 15 bookshelves, get this. Okay, that's 5, 8, 13, nearly 15. This is a lot of bookshelves. So siphoning table will definitely be going through some changes as well. It's definitely in an early beta state, the mod, at the moment. There's also going to be contextual loot for enchanting, to allow specific enchantments to be found in specific structures around your world, which will get players to seek out specific structures for their rewards. I personally stacked the bookshelves too high around a corner. That's another way you can do it. There's a few ways you can do it, definitely. And, Yeah. Villages and anvils are also open to changes if something works better. Again, I did mention that anvils will be getting a balancing change regarding the level swapping, because currently you can just swap out like a really low level enchantment with a high one, and you can pretty much just lower the cost for that a lot. And I think that it's a bit too broken at the moment, so I think that the lower levels should like have a little bit more tax if like you're not swapping out an equivalent level. So that's one little change I'm going to make. It's still probably going to be cheaper for people who like want to experience that little exploit. Because like again, it's like I think rewarding game knowledge is good. The bad part is when you reward game knowledge too hard and like it becomes an exploit. So the mentioned changes again are in a very early conceptual stage, so likely won't be exactly as advertised here. These features aren't quite a promise. But nonetheless, to end with a quote from one of my favourite YouTube videos, haha, I hope you liked it. I've had a lot of fun working on the mod, and while it's very clearly not finished, you'll be able to download the mod on either CurseForge or Modrinth for Fabric and NeoForge, as soon as a beta releases over the next few weeks. I have some final features to iron out, so I hope to see you there when I'm ready. If you want to follow the project on a currently unlisted Modrinth page, feel free. If you wish to follow my Blue Sky or Fediverse account, these are also good places to gain updates on the project. If you wish to contact me or discuss anything about my mods, you're also free to check out the Greenhouse Modding Discord. This can be found on the Modrinth mod page. Either way, I hope you all enjoy your stay at Blanketcon 25. Feel free to come up to me at any time and talk. Thanks. Anyways, any questions? Yes, I do have a question. Yes, you may ask a question.
Alright.
Q&A mod is also online.
Oh. Alright, I'll just ask it because I can't get up the mic. Is the Enchiridion anvil and enchanting table like a separate block, or just like does it replace the vanilla one as soon as you place the vanilla one?
Replaces the vanilla one.
Okay.
So I did mix-ins into those to specifically make it. It's only separate here because I wanted other booths to be allowed to use the enchanting table and anvil.
Oh, okay.
That's the only reason why it's separate. Calico, is Armchair and Scope Yowie or Yuri? That is a good question. Honestly, I'm also envisioning them as Yowie, but you can be the judge of that. They're not picky. Yeah, why not both, you know? Why not both?
Okay,
Hey,
wait,
Echo.
Is this on? Does this work? I haven't tested this.
I can't quite hear you, but I'll come
Okay,
closer.
so it doesn't work then. Fun.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, my question was, I heard you talking about a reach enchantment at the beginning. In PvP, reach can be extremely broken.
It doesn't it's only block reach.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
It's exclusively for tools and is only block reach.
That's good, because in PvP, if one person has reach, you can't hit the other person at all. It's
Yeah.
really broken. Yeah, right. Thank you.
I did consider that. Yeah, PvP it definitely is broken. As someone who has played with Origins, look at an Endarian and you'll see people picking it just for the reach.
Hello.
Okay. Any more questions? There's Miku in the audience, which is awesome. Hi, Miku.
Hi.
Yeah, we got Miku in the audience. Let's go.
Bill.
It's exciting to
Okay.
meet you. I'm such a big fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, Miku.
Yay.
Nico, I'm seeing your movie tomorrow.
Yo! Okay, so I would recommend checking out the booth if you want to like have more info on how the enchantments play. Hey, maybe you'll like something. So I guess I'll go on a little tangent now, an unscripted tangent that I left out of the talk. So, Enchiridion's enchantments were, oh, you have a question? OPL, do you have a question? Nope? Okay. I'll go on a little tangent. So, my tangent is that Enchiridion struggled with its identity for a while, because we specifically did not define what the enchantments were, like, supposed to be in terms of, like, how they were actually made. So, I had to just sit down one day and discuss what we should have done for the enchantments, and that was something that was chopping, not a tree capitator. That's exact. Soaring is splitting. Splitting exists. Splitting exists in the mod. So I beat you to that, Fiona. So yeah, the enchantments were like, I wanted to keep them like to a similar level of complexity to vanilla, so it's like something where it's like, you don't want to like overdo it. I feel like a lot of like, I am not really a fan of like overdone enchantments, like, kind of like the stuff from like Enchantment or Spellbound, for example. Enchantment is a whole can of worms. Do not ask me about Enchantment, you won't be happy. And yeah, so pretty much we wanted to like keep it to, just, yeah, you will get an hour speech about Enchantment if you ask me about it. Don't do what Echo did. Yes. Enchantment questions are banned because I do not want a Blanketcon presentation in MC drama. Yes, neither do I. And like, I also just don't want to be spreading negativity. I'm just going to be entirely real, so that talk will not be happening, because I think that negativity and like bagging out someone's mod is one of the worst things you can do. As like constructive feedback is awesome, but I just don't know if like, I just don't think I'm like the right audience for a mod like that. Like, people like the mod, and like, I think that like, if I were to like look at, looking at it as like more of like my own biases don't exist level, it makes sense. It's just very different. Yeah. Exactly, Fiona. You have, that's the way you treat it. It's like, I want to make sure that the, I don't want to spread negativity, and like, that's not what I want to do, and it might leave a bad taste in people's mouths if like, someone were to like, go and up on stage and like, be like, oh yeah, this is why I don't like this mod. Here's why. Yeah, any opinions that could have become constructive become your own projects. Calico, is there anything you want to go more in-depth into? Enchanting. As in like talk about, or within the mod? Talk about. No, we can end the talk here if you'd like, because nobody's asking questions. So, thank you all for listening, and oh, we have 20 more minutes. Thank you all for listening. I'm gonna go hang out in the Enchiridion booth. Do we all want like a little party at the Enchiridion minigame?
Well, that'd be fun, yeah.
We could all do a little party at the Enchiridion minigame and just get completely swarmed by mobs.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Let's go do that.
Yeah, let's go get swarmed by mobs. Let's go. So /warp Enchiridion, I'll be there with you all.